Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Grace Jones. I'm a director in our marketing communications department at the hospital, and it is my privilege to welcome you to this special evening. Before we get started, I wanted to take care of a few housekeeping items. Our film tonight is going to last about 50 minutes, and then will be followed by a question and answer panel with some of our caregivers that you will see in the film. You were handed a card on your way in that has a QR code and a URL on it that you'll be able to use your cell phone to ask questions for the panel. So you can be thinking about what questions you have as you watch the film. We do ask that during the film that there's no photography or videography, but during the panel, you are more than welcome. I do ask that you would take a moment right now to silence your cell phones. And then it is my honor and privilege to welcome to the stage Dayton Children's President and CEO, Debbie Feldman.
Thank you, Grace. As Grace said, I am Debbie Feldman, and it is absolutely my honor to serve as the CEO of Dayton Children's Hospital. And on behalf of our Board of Trustees, I want to welcome all of you to the premiere of the documentary, Connected, the seemingly impossible separation of Pedro and Augusto. I met these little boys about 3 years ago, and from the moment I met them, I was touched by their smiles, by their laughter, by their love of music and dancing. 3 years later, I could not be more proud of our care team, of our physicians, our nurses, our respiratory therapists, our child life specialists, our social workers, our physical therapists, occupational therapists, interpreters, everyone who wrapped themselves around these two little boys. They dedicated themselves to provide really life-saving care to Pedro and Augusto. And I think they would tell you that despite their Herculean efforts, those boys probably gave more than they received. So it has been a 3-year journey, there's no question. This separation has been full of all kinds of surprises and ups and downs, but these now 5-year-old boys, I think, will capture your heart the way they've captured ours. So you might ask, why did we title this documentary Connected when it was all about separation? But the reality is, the unexpected thing was that more connections were made than we could ever have anticipated throughout this endeavor. Our care team connected to each other like never before. The bonds that they built are stronger and tighter, and it gives them the confidence now to know that they can conquer anything that comes their way if they rely and work together. It connected them to the very height of their clinical skills and showed them what they were capable of that probably some of them didn't even know they were. But what it does for us as a Dayton community is provides us caregivers and clinicians that have even higher level skills to take care of the children of our community. It connected us once again to our community. The Connor Group, who provided the pilot and the plane to take Augusto and Pedro to Dayton and back home. To Kettering Health, who graciously provided the services of Dr. Ankur Patel to provide support for this effort. You know, we know at the hospital that we can't do what we do without our community, and this was just one more example of how our community came to us and stood with us and helped this miracle happen. It connected us to those boys in a way that we will never forget. We know that we will be with those boys for their entire lives, watching them grow and continuing to thrive. And the boys themselves are continued to be connected. They continue to be connected, maybe not physically, but they're connected with their hearts. They look to each other, they rely on each other. Our physicians tell us, and our caregivers tell us that they look to hold hands, to put their heads on each other's shoulders. There's a connection there that can never, ever be broken. So tonight you're going to have the opportunity to see this documentary. Many of you, a number of you in this room, actually were part of the care team. Some of you had the chance to already see this documentary, and you've brought your loved ones with you. So we want to give a deepest thanks to you, the loved ones and family members of our Dayton team. We know that you were there for them, you provided support during some very challenging times, and we cannot thank you enough. We have other members of the Dayton Children's family here, and as always, I know you are here for our children, and I know you will be as proud as I am tonight of what your colleagues have accomplished. We have community members here who support Dayton Children's in many, many ways. And again, we can't do what we do without you. And then some of our foundation board members and board of trustee members are here, and our deepest thanks to you as well. So with that, we will watch Connected, the story of the seemingly impossible separation of Pedro and Augusto. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we bring our panelists up, I want to take a moment and recognize the dozens of people that cared for Pedro and Augusto when they were here in Dayton. You saw some of the team in the film, but there were many others, and many of you are here tonight. So if you are here tonight and you gave any sort of patient care to Pedro and Augusto, would you please stand and be recognized? What we just saw was truly just a glimpse of what I know were thousands of hours that you spent caring for these boys, thinking about these boys, worrying about them, and celebrating with them. You have truly made a difference in their lives, and this would not be possible without all of you. At Dayton Children's, we always say that we put the child at the center of everything we do, and you truly put Pedro and Augusto at your center. So on behalf of everyone at Dayton Children's and everyone here tonight, we thank you. We're now going to invite the panelists to come on forward. As we do that, as a reminder, you were given the card at the beginning. We would love to answer as many of your questions as possible. So you can scan that QR code or go to the URL and submit your questions on there. After the panel, we will invite you out to the reception. In the reception, it'll be on the first and second floor. We'll have drinks and hors d'oeuvres, but more importantly, we have various displays that you'll get to go and see things from the documentary. Things like the 3D models and Dr. Lober's drawings, and you will even get to try out the stapler if you want to. So I will now invite our panelists out to have a seat. That's fine, one more.
That's you. Okay.
Okay, deep breath. That was the hard part, right? This isn't hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that everyone just saw you guys on the screen, but in case they don't remember who everyone is, let's just go down the line and tell us who you are and what your role is at Dayton Children's. You start.
I'm Rob Lober, pediatric neurosurgeon.
Chris Gordon, plastic surgeon.
Ben Goodstein, Vice President, Chief Ambulatory Officer, and President of Medical Group.
Elise Huntley, Certified Child Life Specialist.
I'm Sean Antasha, pediatric anesthesiologist.
And Scott Rapp, plastic surgeon.
Okay. So, Dr. Gordon, I want to start with you. I want to know a little bit about, tell us that first time you saw the boys, what that was like, and did you think that this was going to be possible?
I saw a picture of them, and it was kind of a tease because the gentleman who showed me knew that they were already in the hospital and that we could drive a few minutes and go see them. So I said, would this be something you'd be interested in doing? I was like, yeah, but I mean, this is an amazingly huge undertaking.
Yeah.
I just want to know if you're interested. I'm like, absolutely. He said, we'll get in the car, we're going to go see them now. So we drove to the Roosevelt Hospital and saw them, and the auxiliary of the Shriners in Guatemala City were there with them, and so the ladies were playing with the babies, and I got a chance to spend some time with them, and I knew that it was probably going to be the hardest separation ever done if it were possible. They were just connected in so many ways, so much brain connected, but I had confidence that, Rob and team would be able to scheme a way to make this work.
Yeah. Dr. Liber, what was it like for you the first time you saw a picture of them?
I was blown away, and maybe I wasn't quite as confident as Dr. Gordon, as anybody knows Dr. Gordon. He's a pretty confident guy. I had some reservations. I wanted to learn more. I wanted some more information, but it gradually became more and more clear that this was a possible thing.
Yeah. It was seemingly impossible, though. That's why it's in the title.
I was going to say, take out seemingly. It was, it was impossible.
Yeah, yeah.
When we talked to the Guatemalans, we brought them back, we talked to their care team, and they said, we thought that was impossible. And I said something like, well, if I knew what I know now, I'd say the same thing.
Yeah.
It was impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, tell us a little bit about when they brought this to you. How did you then take this to the board and senior leadership, and what was that like getting that support for this?
Well, when they showed me the picture in the hallway, I thought that this is crazy. But when Dr. Liber and Dr. Gordon put their heads together, I have the utmost confidence that they're, first and foremost, some of the best surgeons in the world. Putting the plan together was pretty easy. It's like any other business plan. But I have to give a huge kudos to our senior leadership team, and specifically our board of directors, for taking such a huge risk. There was a lot of risk in the hospital, spending the time, resources, and funding to do this, but it proved that they stand behind our mission, which is the relentless pursuit of optimal health for every child within our reach. And a couple words there that stand out to me. Number one is relentless. I think that's a very special word in our mission. And then every child within our reach. And I think what this has done is elevate not only the skills of our doctors, but the caregivers, our leadership, our administration, everybody involved. It really just elevated the entire team. So having the support of the board, having the support of senior leadership, having Dr. Mazov's vision of how he puts a team together and relies on the support structure that he has was vital to the success of this program.
Yeah, absolutely. So Elise, you are part of our Child Life team, which we saw in the film. Tell us a little bit about when you first met the boys and how you worked with them to reduce anxieties and what that was like, and tell us a little bit about their individual personalities.
They both had very different personalities. So they both loved music and dancing. That definitely, and she saw in the film, calmed them down as soon as they got in. Augusto was much more laid back. Pedro liked it his way, so if he wanted the toy, he was gonna reach up and grab the toy, and then Augusto would move on to the next one because he was a little more laid back. So our role in Child Life is to decrease anxiety. So me and the rest of the team did a bunch of different things. We did medical play with the mask, so it wasn't as scary and intimidating. Our inpatient team worked really hard, especially after the boys were separated, working on those new sensory experiences. And then we did a lot of distraction during all the different procedures and exams and blood draws and pokes, using therapeutic toys and development-appropriate toys to kind of keep their mind off the scary thing that was happening.
Yeah, great. And we do have a table out there that you can see some of the tools that Elise used and learn a little bit more about that. Dr. Antosh, I'll give you this one from the audience. Where'd it go? I just lost it. Sorry, it's all on my phone here. I just lost it. I think it was what's one thing that you really want people to know about how hard this surgery was?
I would say the one thing that is the hardest that we encountered was each surgery was different. We changed their physiology in the middle of surgery, so we didn't know how they were going to react. And from a team of anesthesiologists and CRNAs, we had to be prepared for anything. And like I said in there, we prepared to separate them at any moment, including our first CT scan with them. So just making sure that everyone was on board and knew their roles in a crisis situation was the thing that planning gets you where you need to be. And thankfully, we never had to emergently separate them, but we were always ready. So that was the part where I think as a team, we grew tremendous, that by the time we were going in for the final surgery, everyone knew their part and what to do to complete the task we needed to finish.
Yeah.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Dr. Antosh, how many hours of training did you guys go through
Before the boys even arrived, we did probably hundreds of mock simulations, discussions. You'll see the sewed together dolls out front that Dr. Lober spent a weekend sewing together. Before we even saw the boys, so that way we can learn how to transport them through the hospital, make sure they fit on our elevators, make sure they fit on our beds. Just thinking that if something should happen, we need 2 of everything, and how are we going to do that? We needed 2 code teams, so we had to develop 2 code teams for this. So it was a tremendous amount of hours of planning before the boys even arrived here at Dayton.
Yeah. So Dr. Rapp, these guys give you a lot of credit for coming in at the end. We see a little bit in the documentary, but then even talking to them yesterday, I mean, they give you a lot of credit for coming in at the end after many hours and kind of saving the day. What was that like for you at that moment that you came in? What were you thinking about as you kind of helped really encourage them to make it to the end?
Well, those are all very nice words, but not all that true. It's a team effort, but I appreciate that. You know, the reality was at that point, we kind of wasn't really thinking about anything. Sort of, one of the anesthesiologists said, you know, this has to happen now, and kind of looked me dead in the eyes, and sort of let you know, your intuition take over, your surgical skills, and kind of autopilot a little bit, and you have to believe that it's going to work, and fortunately it worked.
Yeah. So Dr. Lober and Dr. Gordon, the audience wants to know, did you ever want to give up and leave them conjoined?
No, I mean, no, I never wanted to give up. I just, I did hit some points where I felt like maybe I'm failing, and you know, there were some moments where it just became so difficult, and you know, in most surgeries, you can stop and say, you know what, let's close up, let's fight another day, we'll find a new way to do it. We got to the point where we were past the point of no return, and so my feeling was we were going to die trying, and yeah, we never wanted to give up. You know, I was at a point where I didn't think I could make it, and yeah, so it was kind of a low. It was one of those things where you talk to God and you say, you know, we need your help, and you know, you got to get us through this because we got to get these boys to live, and I think I was at that point. I don't know how you felt.
It was kind of a roller coaster, but it went on so long. You go through waves of emotions, and you know, I have to give credit to this huge team of people. We worked together every day, but we became so close that everybody kind of sensed what was going on, and we pumped each other up. You know, and when somebody had to take a break, they tagged us out. They said, "You're out. You need to take a break. Go get some candy." And it was kind of like a sporting event. You know, you're in a marathon and you go through phases, but towards the end, once the bone was cut and there was no going back, we just had to decide we're going to do this. And then the added pressure when we heard that they were starting to, show some signs of, the lungs weren't taking it well. A little bit of added pressure probably was just enough to make us press on, a little bit more bravery, maybe a little bit more stress, but get to the finish line. But, we couldn't have done it without being this close.
Yeah, and I think the team, I just want to before I riff on that for a second, though, is just the team that we had. I mean, they were so supportive, and I don't feel like we could have done it with anybody else. And they got us through. There was that moment. Dr. Kalile said, "You got to take a break," and people saw that. We really supported each other, and so we couldn't have done it with any other team.
Well, and I've talked to other teams who've done this. We actually had Dr. Salyer, who separated the Egyptian twins 20 years ago this month, came in and helped us plan this. And we talked a lot, but none of the teams stayed the whole time. This is the only team that stayed the full 3 days, beginning to end. And I've got to give, thanks and admiration to everybody who was there, because it was a huge challenge, huge weight on the families and loved ones who were without their families during all this, and the stress had to be tremendous, so thank you.
People had young kids that they had to leave at home, and it was a sacrifice for all the families. We're just so grateful for everybody that we had. It's an unbelievable team.
Yeah. a few people have asked how long that final surgery was, and so you kind of just said that it was 3 days, right? 74 hours.
I think about
Does that seem about right?
62 of operating and a couple of sleeping.
Yeah.
No, that was operating time.
74 of operating, right.
Oh, okay. That seems like a long time.
Pounds of candy did we eat?
Yeah, how many pounds of candy?
Sterile candy.
Calculate the progress in gummy worms.
There you go.
Just so you know, Dr. Gordon gets grumpy at about 48 hours.
You were the grumpy one.
So I like this question, and I feel like you'll be happy to know this. It says, you all looked very calm in the video. Did everyone always remain that calm throughout the final surgery? And did you, the doctors, ever differ in the approach you needed or wanted to take?
Good questions. I do feel like, we had some stressful moments, but the interesting thing about it, they go over it in the video a little bit, is that we had trained over and over again, and it was just sort of like on autopilot when we got into an emergency on the first case. Everybody did exactly what they were supposed to do. That's why you do those mock drills over and over again. And it's just, so we just went into the mode of doing what we were trained to do. And it wasn't a panicked thing at all. And I felt the other thing was, you spend all that time together, you think that somebody would, really, you have complaints or you'd have people grumpy. It really felt, it was like kind of a slumber party, right? Everybody was just really enjoyed working together and being with each other, and they feel like family. And so, what was the other question? I'm sorry.
I think you answered.
Okay.
No, did you ever change from what you had planned? Maybe talk about your drawings a little bit.
Like always,
yeah.
like the whole time. Yeah, we called it audibles. I mean, I think So I think that with the drawings that I think I did like 7 versions of what it might be at some point. And it was one of them, but we didn't know what we were going to expect, and so we had to think about it. I think having Dr. Akil Patel there to kind of show us what the vessels were doing, how the blood flow was going. This is one of those things. It's kind of a dynamic situation.
Yeah.
I remember one anecdote, which is one of my favorites, because we were sure that one boy was going to have kidney failure and need a transplant, and we even put in a dialysis catheter getting ready for that. And then as soon as we clipped those vessels and brought them back up to the ICU, they said, Pedro's peeing now. Like, he hadn't peed in weeks. And we were like, what? Yeah. We put a clip in one kid's brain and the other kid started to pee. So it's that Mike Tyson, line about everybody has a plan until they get punched in the nose,
Yeah, that's great. Elise, this one's for you. As a child life specialist, what unique challenges did you face in supporting the care of Augusto and Pedro, and what helped you navigate those challenges?
I think the biggest challenge was 2 patients at once. So normally I go in and prep one kid and I try and get their attention, talk to them. But with Augusto and Pedro, when you're trying to interact with one, the other one obviously needs your attention and kind of is getting involved. So it's very different trying to prep both of them and try and engage and build rapport with both of them when they both had different personalities. One of the things I did is research, reading over how other psychosocial teams had supported conjoined twins. So one idea I got from that was a mirror. So we put a mirror in the bed so that the twins, because they weren't looking the same way, so that when a staff member stood on one side, whoever was facing away would also see that doctor, so that wasn't a scary voice coming from behind them. So I think it was definitely a lot of kind of getting creative. I spent a lot of time with them. We brought them into our sensory rooms in the pre-op area to really just build rapport and play, see who they were, see what they liked, what they didn't like, and that was really helpful before we started those imaging and studies to kind of know who they were and what they liked.
Yeah.
Talk about what a sensory room is.
Sure. So we have, in surgery, we have sensory rooms which are designed to provide a more relaxing experience for our patients. We can adjust a lot of the sensory stimuli in that room, so lower lights, brighter lights, different interactive sensory toys with textures and sounds that are designed for our patients primarily who have sensory sensitivities with different developmental disabilities like autism, but also they work for any patient who's nervous. So we have them in our surgery and then also our lab area at the hospital.
Yeah, great. Dr. Antosh, tell us a little bit more about your kind of similar question. What were the unique challenges related to anesthesia with conjoined twins, and and just what made that most difficult in this?
Yeah, I mean, so Lisa already kind of mentioned it, but they're connected, obviously. And so typically you're one-on-one with your patient. And so what we had to realize in the beginning is when you gave a medication to one patient, how it affected the other patient. And so that took some experimentation in the beginning as we're doing our CT scans to figure out how long it took medications to cross from one to the other and how it would affect them. And then as we progressed, again, you know, we're changing all of their anatomy in their brain. So we weren't sure, like Chris said, as things moved on, you know, Pedro's blood pressures were lower because he was kind of lazy and was giving everything to Augusto to deal with. So Augusto was peeing for Pedro for quite a while, just because Pedro didn't want to deal with it. And so, you know, trying to figure out how that happens under anesthesia and the medications we give to make sure they're both safe was just a learning process every time along the way. And then the team was amazing. So 6 anesthesiologists, 4 nurse anesthetists, and an anesthesia resident who's now doing his pediatric fellowship and joining us as a colleague in a year. Can't say enough about them. Truly. They were there all the time. We were all in sync. And, you know, there's a lot of opinions in anesthesia how things are done. But we were able to work as such a great team to make sure that everything we did was the same every single time. So there was no error on our part keeping them safe.
Yeah. So Dr. LeBoer and Dr. Gordon, this was truly a historical thing, the way you did this. How does what you did really change the landscape of this kind of care?
That's a good question.
Well, I think, you know, we're still trying to get our minds around all of it. You know, obviously the last few years has just been dedicated to taking care of these kids. And now that things are getting settled, we're kind of sitting back and talking about, you know, what we could actually share with the world in terms of what we've learned. And I think we counted something like 18 publications that we had lay out of different things that we learned from the psychosocial aspects, the ethical aspects, the nursing care, respiratory care, physical therapy, all these pieces before you even get to the anatomy and so on. And I think that our entire institution has something to share with the world when it comes to that. So I think it will change the landscape, at least in terms of, you know, what we know about craniopagus. There's really no great literature out there. The people who have done it have passed away. For the most part, and they didn't really share enough. We really could have used more people's help on this, but so I think, you know, that will change things. But the other piece of this is that this has really put our team in a position to take care of very complex problems. And as we develop this craniofacial program, and we, you know, and kids are coming with more and more difficult things, we really can sort of translate those skills that we've learned to other children, and even the children in Dayton. They don't have to come from all over the world, but we have a skill set that is pretty incredible, and so this has really elevated the care that we're able to give to the children of Dayton. So anyway, sorry to blab.
We've put together a consortium of, you know, our hospital and a couple of organizations that are helping us both fund and bring the patients in from all over the world. So in the last couple of months, we've operated on kids from several countries in Africa, the Caribbean, Asia, you know, et cetera. And these were kids who had the most complex craniofacial syndromes, short of being conjoined twins. And I just remember distinctly thinking we were working on a kid who has Crouzon syndrome, and working on the back of the head where these gigantic blood vessels live, that if you rip them, the kid's going to die. And a year ago, we would have been pretty sober about drilling holes near those, and, you know, we just blazed through like it was not that big a deal anymore. Having shot staplers across blood vessels twice that size a few times, we've gained a confidence and I think just a new insight into how to do these things. And I think it's really not just upped our game, but I think we're starting to be recognized for it. So I think we may end up being the biggest center, if not in the country, maybe in the world, you know.
Yeah. So I'd like to ask this question to everyone, and maybe we can start down at Dr. Rapp and work our way. What does it mean to you to have been a part of this, and how, if at all, has it changed you as a provider?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was pretty emotional to watch that. It brings back a lot of memories, and it was just a privilege to be a part of this team because it was just excellent on all fronts. I would love to continue working as much as I can with this team going forward on more complex patients and have the same sort of successes. It's something that gets you out of bed every day, gets you up to go to work every day, and makes this meaningful. It's very appreciative.
So when Chris comes up to me with his cell phone and says, "You got to see this kid," maybe I should stop saying yes immediately, which is usually what I say. But honestly, I would not have said yes to any other surgeons in this world. Chris and Rob are amazing people. They truly care about everyone around them. They truly care about anesthesia, which is rare to find in most surgeons who do anything like this. So I'm very proud to work next to them and appreciative that they let me help them.
I think, like others have said, working part of the team, the challenges that forced us to have different conversations to brainstorm. I know within the child life department, there was a lot of collaboration among the different units, and then with the other disciplines, it was a really great opportunity to learn about working together and kind of finding ways to use everybody's strengths to support the kids together.
I would stop and say, just from an administrative standpoint, look at this team and hear them speak. Look at the humility that they have, the relationships they have with each other. I've worked in healthcare for 25 years with physicians, and this doesn't exist anywhere else but in Dayton. Whether it's these doctors or the other doctors that we have that service this community, a kind of program like this that we just started has now morphed into an opportunity for Dayton Children's to serve not only this community but the world in craniofacial surgeries. And I think that's a very special thing for the Dayton community. This is something that sets us apart from just about every other children's hospital because of the skills of this team, the humility of our anesthesia team, the world-class surgeons we have in our plastic surgery department. Scott Rapp is our newest member of that team. Dr. Rob Lober, Dr. Kambiz Kamian, Dr. Vakrajani, our neurosurgery team. These are some of the most humblest people I've ever met, along with the other surgeons at Dayton Children's. So I would say the thing that I learned the most is trust them. They're the experts at care. They know what to do. They know what's safe. You clearly heard from them the safety plans that they put in place. The thing we haven't talked about is the humanitarian part of this case. And I have to give kudos to Dawn Cox. She's here tonight. She really managed a large portion of the humanitarian case, which is all the personnel stuff. We went to multiple court cases. We went to multiple issues with the family and dealing with the community relations part of that and figuring out what's the best food for the family. So that team was never arrogant. It was never about them. It was about serving the children. And I think that's the specialist part about Dayton Children's is the doctors are committed to our mission, and our number one value is safety. And you've heard throughout this entire story that safety is the most important thing to them, not just for themselves, but for the children. And I don't know what else to say other than I'm honored to be on this team and help support them go through this mission and to be as engaged as they allowed me to be with these boys.
Yeah. Dr. Gordon, what did it mean to be part of this, and how has it changed you as a provider?
You know, I came to Dayton and I just didn't expect to be so warmly embraced and have people just say, what can I do to help you, take your dream and make it into reality?
Where'd you come from?
I came from Cincinnati Children's Hospital. That's right. I don't know if you heard of that place. But it's just different. This town, this hospital, all of my colleagues just opened their arms up and said, let's just do it. And I don't know anywhere else this would have happened. It's unique. I think it's maybe Midwestern values and good people and just the perfect timing, a lot of talent in one place, and just makes me proud to work here.
Yeah. Dr. Lober, what about you? How has this changed you?
Well,
I got older.
yeah, I got older. I'm forever changed. This has brought me into contact with the most amazing people, the most incredible team, just the most beautiful human beings. Mr. and Mrs. Huff, angels. What are we up to? 27 foster kids at this point. I mean, just the most beautiful people. Daryl and Wanda Fulp, who are here from Guatemala. You guys are the real deal, and I am forever changed, having known you, and somehow this brought us all together as a family, and I just, I don't know what else
No
to
words.
say except I love you guys, and this has just been an incredible experience to get to know you and be a part of your lives, and I'm so inspired by you.
Yeah. So before I ask my last question, as Dr. Lober just said, we have Daryl and Wanda here who are from Hope for Home Ministries. Can you guys stand up for us so they can see who you are? I'm going to ask him. So as you saw in the film, Hope for Home Ministries is actually headquartered near here, but their Hope Home is in Guatemala, and that's where the boys are. And after we are done tonight with the panel, you're going to have an opportunity. We're going to put a QR code up on the screen, and you will have an opportunity that if you feel led and want to make a donation to Hope for Home to help support the ongoing care of Pedro and Augusto, I know that Daryl and Wanda would be eternally grateful, and as would the boys. And so I just want to ask Dr. Lober to tell us a little bit more about where the boys are staying, how it's going to continue to support their quality of life, how you're continuing to stay involved with them, and how supporting Hope for Home Ministries will help them.
Yeah, I wish I could do it justice, Daryl and Wanda. I'll just tell you, I was worried when we were talking about getting the kids back. Are we going to have the right resources? Are they going to have everything they need? Are they going to be in an environment where they're loved? And we went there, and I thought, this is heaven on earth. These just the most amazing, loving people, just the best environment, and I felt so good, as we left, knowing where they were at. I can't speak to everything that you do, but I think there's two separate facilities right now that are. I don't even want to use the word orphanage. It's not. It's like it's a home. It's 5. It's only 5. Okay, 5, of course. So I knew of the 2 because I saw the videos of the 2, and but there's a birthing center. There's a feeding center. They have been called to do this, and their model is pretty amazing. We asked, so what's your business model? How do you do funding? We don't. We pray, and God gives us what we need. And I've never met people like you, but they live their faith, and God does really provide, and it's such an amazing thing to watch and just to witness. So if there's a place to donate to, it's these guys. I mean, it's just such a beautiful thing. But they have nursing staff that's there taking care of the boys. There is physical therapy. There's teachers. It's an amazing psychology. There's just an amazing community. And again, I'm not the brochure. I don't, But I'm just telling you what I saw when I was there, and I felt just so touched by it.
And you're continuing to do.
Well, yeah, and so they've been really good about this. We on Friday mornings we have a Zoom video visit with the nurses to check in on the boys and see how they're doing, and it's they've been really gracious about that, and so we're able to continue to coordinate. And if there's any questions or concerns, so that's really been great that they're just we're able to stay in contact with them. I feel really good about where we're at now.
Talk about the specialists. So when we went down there, we created a care team from Roosevelt Hospital, and we transferred care to their neurosurgeons and their plastic surgeons that we're all on a WhatsApp conversation about making sure that we maintain that relationship. So part of bringing the boys back was transferring the care back to Guatemala and giving them custody back in Guatemala. And part of the ruling from the judge when we went to court down there was that it was mandated that a pediatrician go out there once a week. Was that right?
I'm not sure exactly.
Once a week or twice.
Yeah,
So on a frequent basis to make sure that we continue the care, and they would update Dr. Gordon and Dr. Lober about this. There's one physician we forgot to mention tonight, and that's Dr. Cook. She was the pediatrician, and I apologize for not bringing her up earlier, but she's our palliative care doctor. She was the primary care physician for these boys from the get-go. When Rob and I went down to Guatemala, if I could say I was impressed, that would be the understatement of my life. She made sure that the medical reconciliation was done perfectly from what the U.S. drugs were to the Guatemalan drugs. The formula got transferred from what we have in the U.S. to the Guatemalan program so that the kids had the best possible care. And then the young lady that was there, her name is Katie. Am I saying that right, Daryl? Katie Riley is from Piqua, Ohio. She graduated from Edison State. She finished her graduate's degree or her bachelor's degree in nursing at Wright State, and she is their nurse. So you want to talk about a tie to the Miami County area, the Miami Valley area, that's the tie. And Daryl and Wanda have lived in the Miami Valley area for quite some time too before moving to Guatemala. So it just felt like the way you transferred care was not just to Daryl's team, but to the Roosevelt team and their compassion with us. I mean, they went to dinner with us, they sat down and you did a 3-hour presentation of the care path that he had done. He shared pictures with them.
Yeah, it didn't seem to me that we were sort of transferring or handing things over. It was that we were making a new connection, new colleagues, new friends that we're going to keep. And, I want to keep that alive, and I want to come visit you. And, so it's not like we're saying goodbye, really, at all.
Yeah, that's great.
Miguel real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the gentleman who introduced me to the twins is a Shriner from Guatemala City. He's a dentist and just lives for helping kids, like all of us do, but he's a pretty special guy, and he went above and beyond. He essentially took a third of the time away from his practice to help coordinate all this crazy stuff with the kids and the courts, and the Attorney General got involved, and competing care teams, and just amazing. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, immigration in the U.S. I mean, just huge amount of work that was behind the scenes. Hasn't, asked for any credit whatsoever. He's just a gentleman, and obviously loves these kids and has been a huge friend to Dayton, and we hope to keep working closely with him and his colleagues in the future.
Okay. Dr. Lober, this will be our very last thing, your hopes for the boys from you, and then we're going to dismiss for our reception.
I want them to be happy. I want them to have joy and quality of life, and I think they will.
Yeah. Okay.